Hey everyone, Inkwelder here for round 2 of the 90s MTG webcam league. It turns out this week I was up against Breakfast, and this is just such a fun, crazy matchup because these two decks are at the top of the meta right now. And it's blue versus red. We both have a bunch of blasts and interaction between us. And so games can get really, really interesting just based off of which side each deck gets. So my opening hand, I had to mull to 5 here in game 1. And so, but this hand is great, right? I've got an artifact and I've got Welder Engineer. I've even got Ancient Tomb to play around Daze on turn 2 when I cast Engineer. So Opal and the redundant Great Furnace can go to the bottom. And so I've actually got a pretty potent hand here for 5 cards. I never mind mulliganing with Painter down to 5. I honestly don't even notice a win, like a general loss trend on it. It's not a problem. So I run out the Furnace Welder. They run out an Urza Saga Pass. So when you see an Urza Saga, I want to force action before the Saga pops off. They might be able to get Pithing Needle to slow me down. And in general, I don't really know what they're doing. They might play an Ancient Tomb and run out constructs. Don't know, but neither of my goblins got forced. So I drew Grindstone for turn, and so I was actually able to just go force the issue and fetch Painter. I think in a lot of cases, if I had seen a different land other than Urza Saga, I may have actually just gone for a Dragon Engine, especially if I didn't draw the Grindstone. So here, with their Saga ticking up, they've got to find an answer. Because I've got an uncounterable. Force of Will doesn't do anything here, and so this is definitely their turn. They got to do something. I actually learned after the whole thing that they actually have Illusionist in their hand and they can go off. They just need Urza Saga to trigger, and they couldn't find it, so they scooped. So I brought in 2 Magus and a Needle because I didn't know if they were actually Breakfast or whether they were another deck. And I don't like bringing in Leyline and burning 4 slots when I can't confirm they're a graveyard strategy. I think in general, you do want to bring in Leylines and Needle against them, or Macabre. Macabre is better because it gets around Teferi. And Magus is optional. You bring in Magus if you think they're not going to respect it. And generally what you want to cut, because it's very tight, right? But Fury is sorcery speed, so get rid of that. Brea's Apprentice isn't doing anything in this matchup. And then Fables, while they're amazing, they're the most susceptible. So I would trim those. So my opening hand here for game 2, is very, very controlling and reactive. So a lot of the hands that I normally keep are very proactive, and they're going and they're playing goblins and fetching things. So in this case, we've got a much slower, let's see what they do, and I can answer a lot of having Pyroblast and Lightning Bolt and such. They open with a turn 1 Spellbomb, and whenever I see Graveyard Hate, I tend to think, did they keep this hand just because they can interact with the graveyard? So I open with Badlands. My hand's reactive. I'm not going to play anything out. I want to keep up my Pyroblast for anything they might do, especially a Cephalid Illusionist, if they wanted to run that out there. So they brainstorm, and I just snap Pyroblast it because it means they're trying to fix their hand. And I don't know. I prefer blasting cantrips when they're fixing hands versus if I know that they're a Murktide deck and I need to counter a Murktide. So now I can play the Saga and run out my artifacts. Saga, I'm going to want to fetch Nile Spellbomb to cover their graveyard. So they've got a Spellbomb of themselves. And you can see I'm going to keep up the red mana for Lightning Bolt. And actually this past turn, so right here I drew Goblin Engineer. And while I could run out Engineer, I didn't want to tap out of I didn't want to lose value on the constructs, given that they played a Narc Amoeba. And I also didn't want to use Engineer to go fetch something and then use Spellbomb to exile it. So I probably should have forced it and just played Engineer and made them use the Spellbomb. that would have probably worked out, but instead I'm just making constructs, and that works perfectly fine here. So I can make another construct, and I can go fetch and get that spell bomb. I do think, and I was speaking with one of the viewers of the stream, then if you go into 90s MTG, you can actually watch these live, which is super cool. But Adam, who was watching it, made a comment that if I had Engineer, I actually should ram it out there. It'll force them to exile my yard, and then I can use Nile Spellbomb as a draw engine, which, because I have Badlands here, that would actually be excellent. And so I should have considered that. In this case, though, I can just play the Great Furnace. I actually drew a Red Elemental Blast here. This was the last draw that I actually tracked. And so I considered running out Engineer, and just, nope, not going to do it. And so I am keeping up red mana for both Red Blast and for Lightning Bolt. So I've got basically 3 areas covered with the Spell Bomb also. And so they make a construct, but my constructs are 6/6s. And I've got another Saga token that I can make next turn if I want, and just pump this thing even bigger. And I'm gonna go fetch another artifact. And so, yeah, I'm really going to have a lot of commanding board presence here versus their side. So they can make more constructs, certainly, but they're only going to be 4/4s, right? So he's making another construct. He's going to go fetch something. Probably will fetch Shuko. Since at this point, when you see the Narc amoeba, right now, I'm like, oh, I wish I had my ley lines, but thankfully my Saga, I had time to get Saga to pop to get Spell Bomb. So yeah, they're very much able to go get Shuko, and wait for them to get the other half of the combo. What's going to start to happen here coming up, and I'm just going to start talking about it now, is that I can certainly try to present kills, but it involves me tapping out, and I'm going to want to play around various cards that Breakfast may have access to. So, and what I'm talking about specifically is that they play, and I didn't remember this at the time, but they play Memory's Journey typically and Jack-o'-lantern. And Memory's Journey shuffles cards back into the library, and you can flash it back in the graveyard for green. They get access to green with this card Jack-o'-lantern, which lets them pay 1 and make a mana, and they can exile the lantern from their graveyard. So they get green mana from their graveyard, and they can shuffle cards back in. And so I was very mindful of that, because I didn't want to activate a Grindstone combo that I'm going to have access to soon. I didn't want to activate that and tap out and lose my interaction, where I then have to tell them to go, take their turn, and they may be able to basically I mill them for them, and then they can play Oracle from hand and win. And so I never wanted to tap out of my my red mana, because I've got the bolt and blast. I also, you'll notice I'm not getting Needle. I'm not playing Needle. I had Needle in my opening hand. I still haven't played it, and it's because I don't know what I want to name with it. And because Shuko, I actually have a response to Shuko. I've got Lightning Bolt. So if they want to do Shuko, right, then I can bolt the Cephalid in response. So I'm actually not worried about it. So there's no reason for me to tax the Needle. They might have some weird cards, or Teferi or Stoneforge or something that I'm actually more worried about. My constructs here are attacking, and they are chunky. You can see I did play the Painter now. So I've got the combo. I've got 3 mana up, but if I use the 3 mana and I sack the Petal, I'm actually tapped out. And if they have a response for Painter, then or they let me just say, okay, sure, and then they they exile the cards, they flash back Memory's Journey or whatever, and they have 3 cards in their library. they draw one, they play Thassa's Oracle, and I lose. And that's what I have to be really mindful of. So I'm going to play really patiently, and just, if they decide to make the first move on something, then I can grind them in response. So that's just something to keep in mind. My opponent here probably should have double blocked. They have 4/4 constructs. I have 8/8 constructs. So they probably should have double blocked to get one of them off the table. That probably would have been the best play, was do a 2-for-1 trade. Instead, they just chumped one. Their life is quite low here. And I guess it's worth pointing out that I have Lightning Bolt in my hand. I had it in my opener, right? I still haven't used it. And if Painter attacks them and deals damage, I can bolt them to win. So they are at 4. So they technically, all 3 of my threats now are lethal. So they've casted another Narcomoeba, which, yeah, they probably should have double blocked, because they can, although maybe, I think they may have just drawn that Narcomoeba. So they untap. I can't swing with the Painter, because they will block it with their 3/3. So I can't attack this turn with Painter, because I have 3 blockers. Now I could bolt one of them or Red Blast a Narcomoeba and attack and try that. But again, that's just very, I didn't want to extend. I've got the win sitting on the board whenever I want it. If I try and extend and get greedy, it could all fall apart. So I attack, and they're forced to double chump, because my attackers are all lethal. So I'm sitting here trying to figure out what to do. I still have Goblin Engineer in hand. I still have Bolt. I still have a Red Blast. It's all sitting in there rotting. There was also a consideration to channel Sokenzen for 2/1/1 attackers if I needed it, but I just played it. And so, yeah, here is where things start to get a little interesting. He plays Cephalid Illusionist, and I'm like, oh crap. Okay, do I counter this? No, I've got Lightning Bolt to answer this Illusionist. Is it okay to let it go? I've got Spellbomb protection for the graveyard, but like I'm still sitting here thinking, and I decide to let it resolve. And go ahead, go and activate Shuko. That's fine. If you try and activate Shuko and go crazy with it, I will bolt. I'll bolt the Illusionist, and because the equipping is sorcery speed. So yeah, he just passes the turn, and I considered doing something here, and then just said, you know what, forget it. I'm not gonna bother and do anything. So I'm just waiting. I'm very patient, and possibly too patient. I don't remember what land I played, but it's a land. So I attack with everything, and they are forced, in this case, they only have 2 blockers. They're actually forced to double chump. So they double chump, and now they're at 3. And now I can make my move. They're semi-tapped out. They've got two up, so I can activate Grindstone. And so now they have to answer Painter. They swords the Painter. And while I could counter the Painter, I just bolt their face. So now they're dying in 2 different ways. And so if they answer the bolt, then then if they answer bolt, then they're good. They exiled my yard to draw a card, and then had to scoop it up. So I was killing them from 2 different ways, and I was just very patient, because a lot of people have ways of avoiding the Grindstone kill now because of how strong the deck is. And so they shuffle their library back in, and against a combo deck, I did not want to give them the graveyard and then allow them to win with the Thassa's Oracle in hand. They always kept up blue, which just made me so worried that they had wizard cycling or something to go get that Oracle. And so that's what I was majorly concerned with. I never played Bolt or Needle that were in my hand. I played Bolt all the way at the end, but I kept that Bolt waiting to get threatened. And it is just a lot of patience, I think, that helped me win this. So hope you enjoyed this overview of the match. It's a bit of a crazy one. My opponent boarded in St. Catherine's, so really interesting. But yeah, thanks everyone for watching. Hope you like the formatting that I'm doing, and yeah, I'll see you for the next round. Thanks. Bye.